It's Miss Gretchen and Miss Becca. Say hi, Miss Becca.
Hello.
Today we are, for Homeschool Hookup, we are interviewing Colonel Hasseltine. He is the Colonel of the 931st Air Refueling Wing, and we're just going to talk about what it's like to become an Air Force officer, why an Air Force officer is really important. So, sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm Phil Hasseltine. I'm the commander of the 931st Air Refueling Wing. So we are a part of the Air Force Reserve Command in the United States Air Force. So as you mentioned, I am an officer in the Air Force. I've been an officer for 27 years. So I went to high school, had no idea what I was going to do in my life other than I thought flying airplanes might be fun. And so a bunch of my teachers helped me out, and I had some mentors along the way that said, well, how do you do that, Phil, if you want to fly airplanes? And so I said, well, I knew the Air Force did, because I grew up on Air Force bases. And so I said, well, I'd like to go do that. And they said, well, how do you do that? And they sent me to the library, and they did some research. And I said, well, it looks like you go to get your college degree. And when you do that, then what helps is to be a part of an Air Force ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps program. And so I did that while I was going to college, and I got my college diploma. And I went to a summer training program to train me how to be an officer. And then I came into the Air Force as a brand new second lieutenant. It's in 1993, so it was a million years ago.
That's a couple of years ago.
The one thing I would like to point out is I had no idea when I was in elementary school, junior high, high school, what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And even more funny when people ask me today, have you done what you want to do in your life? And said, I still don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I'm just having so much fun.
You're still waiting to grow up?
Yes, and I'm going to be very disappointed, I think, when I finally achieve that point. So I did not come into the Air Force as a pilot, so that might be a little bit interesting for some people. I actually was a support officer, and I did that for about 5 years, and then I applied to be a pilot, and I actually didn't get accepted 4 times. But I kept applying, and as I like to say, despite my best efforts, I got sent to pilot training, and I got to become a KC-135 pilot. So we have KC-135s here, and I flew KC-135s for 21 years before going in to now fly the KC-46 that we have here at McCall. So we have both, and I actually can fly both.
That's cool.
It's very strange, yeah. So have a really just one of the most neat jobs here. And so as an officer, the role of the officer, I think, is really interesting in our military service. So that's, if you want to think about that, we're the ones that have to do the policy, and we kind of run it like a business. Everybody else gets to do the fun stuff. And, we go out, I get to go fly airplanes, but then I'm left with a lot of administrative, how do you organize, how do you train, how do you equip a unit. That's really the responsibility of the officer corps to make sure that that actually happens. But without an enlisted corps, we absolutely couldn't do our job. So it's a really great relationship that we have there. That's kind of the difference between the officer and the enlisted. Now, what I will say, for those who don't know that they want to go to college yet, I would say don't do it. Go do something else. What's really great is these other opportunities that we have. If you're considering the military, is an in-flight refueling specialist, or there's just a lot of cool things that we have in our Air Force that you can come in and do while you're still trying to decide what you're going to do with your life. And the cool part about this, there's money that can help you go to school. So if you don't know what you're going to do with your life, and I'm that guy, I'd recommend go get yourself a skill or a trade, or just go learn something. Don't necessarily throw yourself right into a massive degree program that you're not really committed to yet. To kind of figure yourself out. I actually waited a couple of years out of high school before I finally got serious about what I was doing. So I jokingly tell folks it took me 5.5 years to get a 4-year degree, because I was still trying to figure out who Phil was at 17 years old. I graduated really young from high school, so I was not really ready to go to a college experience.
I'm not ready to do a life decision.
No, I still am not, so it's really crazy. But I'm having a lot of fun. I grew up on military bases, so for some of your audience are all military kids, I am a true, now we called ourselves brats, so I don't know whether anybody does that anymore, but there's actually...
I think they still do.
Okay. So, I lovingly call myself a brat. So I grew up on, I moved 13 times when I was with my mom and dad. And then when I went into the Air Force, I have moved 12 more times. So if you're keeping track, that's 25 moves I've had in the course of my life. So if you're really keeping track, that's one move every 2 years of my entire life. So it's been a lot of fun. I know it's really challenging. I know for some kids, moves are probably the most annoying thing out there. Very stressful. And what school am I going to go to? And where are we going to live? And where's the base pool? Where's the library? You know, all these things that you just don't know until you're moving around. So I lived that. I've traveled all around the world. Lived in the Philippines as a kid. Went to a Department of Defense school. So kind of, you always knew where the library was, because it's it's that piece of America when you're outside of the United States. That's that piece of, hey, all the books are in English, and hey, this is really great, and the people let me come in here and read them all, which is really great. So, what questions do you have?
Well, so I kind of like how you pointed out that you can start the military as, you said, an enlisted corps. So what's the difference between an officer corps and an enlisted corps? You say that, I know a lot of kids hear that all the time from their moms or dads, whoever's in. So what's the difference there?
So one of the really big difference is it's the period of service that you're signing on to do. Where an officer, when we join the military, we've said we're going to be here for 20 years or more. And we can leave at any time in between that period. Now, if I'm an enlisted member, I have signed on for a period of time that I'm going to be in military service. And that's sometimes from 2 years to 4 years to 6 years. And then over the course of people's lives and careers, they'll recommit to another period of time. And that period of time is called an enlistment in the military. And so that's really the big difference. Other than I get all the administrative unfun things to do. On the enlisted side, it's a period of time that you're committing to serve. But day in, day out, we work right alongside each other, and it's a fantastic relationship.
So can you go from enlisted to an officer?
Glad you asked that. So my dad actually did that. So my father, he was in the Air Force for 5 years, and then went to get his commission, and he retired as a colonel after almost 29 and a half years. So it's pretty, that opportunity is there. Now, interestingly enough, my little brother, he's in the Air Force band. He plays the French horn, and so he got all of the talent. I got nothing. So he's a master sergeant, and so when he came into the military, he actually had not only his college degree, but he had a master's degree, and decided that the enlisted corps, that business, was just where he found his niche, and he's done really well. So I'm super proud of Ryan, and again, he got all of the skills.
Here actually play for us.
Yeah. And so he's been in the band in Offutt, the one in Alaska, and the one at Langley, and now he's coming back to Offutt. So we're going to be right up the street here in Omaha. So we're very excited to have this be the closest we've lived to each other. And so he's been in the Air Force now 21 years. So it's pretty neat.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So you touched on your education. Is there any special training? You said you spent a summer learning how to be an officer. Did you learn everything you learned in officer school?
Absolutely
to be an officer?
No, life teaches you so much more. They're just going to teach you the basics of wearing a uniform, the rank structure, how to organize yourself, how to live with a day that's completely scripted. You're going to get up at 5. Yes, that's awful. And then you're going to eat now, and you're going to go here, and you're going to learn physical fitness. So they teach you some of these core traits, and I did that. It was about a 6-week period in the summer of 1991. Boy, I'm really showing my age here. But so just the basics of, okay, this is what it means. This is how to put your clothes on. This is how you wear your hat when you walk outside. The things that most people just don't know that you do, and you take it off when you come inside. So that just these fun things. But no, the life experiences are what brings you to this point. And so I think it's just like life. I mean, you don't know everything about what you're going to do until you go out and experience and make some mistakes. And, younger officers, we sometimes don't do everything right. And so we luckily, what the neat part about our military is they usually partner you up with a enlisted member to guide and mentor you. That's actually a required relationship. It's a neat thing. That it's actually something that is written right into the guidance. You're talking about your performance guidance plan that we were talking about earlier. That's exactly written into all of our non-commissioned officers' responsibilities, is to mentor company grade officer development. So it's a great relationship.
So you're saying your job, you actually spend your entire life learning?
Every day.
learn new things.
I think if I ever came to work and I didn't learn something, it's probably time for me to stop.
And all my homeschool kids know what's Miss Gretchen's big thing. You have to learn something every time we do something. So there we go. Learn your whole life.
I just learned that. Okay, great.
Okay. So what does a day in the life of a colonel do?
Okay, I will say the day in the life of this colonel is I usually come into work and I unfortunately have to check my email, and in that email I spend a lot of time looking at electronic mail that comes to me to say, hey, we need this information from you, or hey, how are you doing on this? Oh, and can you give us updates on that program? So a couple of things that I check on every day is, hey, how are our airplanes flying? Are the pilots and the in-flight refueling specialists, are they able to do what they can do? Or do the maintenance and mission support folks have everything that they need to do to be able to do the mission? Are our defenders who protect us every day, do they have all their resources? Do our civil engineering people have enough to support the base as they can do it? I also have about 55 people getting ready to deploy, go down range, leave their families for about 6 months, and so I got to make sure that they're getting all of the training that they need to do. And an interesting thing I have to also worry about is, are my people being paid? And so that's a little different thing,
Yes.
in budget-constrained times, I have to come in every day and go, do we have the resources to be able to pay to do the things that we want to do? Are the people actually being paid? Are they being paid correctly? And so that part ends up being a bit of my time. And then we also look at how are we going to make this organization better? So we have a thing called process improvement. And so we look at everything that we do almost on a weekly basis and go, well, hey, how well did we do what we just did? Could we do it better? Did that make sense? And is there a better way to do it? Is somebody doing it better than we are? And let's go find out what theirs is. Let's take their names off of it and make it ours. And then we'll call it a process improvement. So we're very excited. The neat thing also about the new airplane, the KC-46, there's a lot of people that are interested in it. And so we have people all over the world flying with this airplane, so I have to make sure that, hey, when they're in Guam or they're in Washington, D.C., do they have everything they need to do their mission and engage the senior leaders of the Air Force in the world, because everybody's interested in the KC-46 right now.
So you're saying you'd also have to have some diplomacy in your
Yes,
job?
Yes, you definitely. So it's all about, everything in your life is going to be about relationships, and relationships matter. And there's a saying out there that says, don't burn your bridges, because you never know when you're going to need to cross them. And so I will tell you, I'm in the Air Force Reserve, but that was after I served 25 years on active duty. And I decided to put on a different type of uniform and continue in service with the Air Force Reserve. But if I had not made a lot of friends and kept a lot of good relationships going, I probably would not have had the opportunity to come and do this. And I'm very blessed in the course of my life that people have held the door open for me. And you have a decision to make when somebody opens the door for you, whether you're going to walk through it. And when you make that decision to walk through, there is actually a requirement that you turn around and you open the door for the next person behind you. So that pay it forward sort of a proposition, and that's the way I've lived my life. I'm very blessed. There's no reason I should be at the level that I am right now. I am not that good. But I will tell you that people have held the door open for me, and I've elected to go through, and then my task is now, hey, bring that next person up, always thinking about who's the next me. Because I'm not always going to be here. So part of what I do in a day is make sure that this place is better than I found it, and then keep it going on a direction that's going to be positive for the organization. And then we always have to be ready in the military that if something really bad happens, we can go defend our nation. So that's kind of where I am on that whole thing. What other questions do you have?
So you kind of touched on it. So mentorship. As a colonel, mentorship is a big deal, or is it, you can let it for some of the younger officers to do?
Absolutely not. So mentorship, I get mentored all the time. I wish my command chief was here because she mentors me. I think everybody we come into contact, we draw a little bit of something from. I lean on the 22nd Air Refueling Wing Commander,
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Rich Tanner, and then Colonel Kenobi over in the 184th. We mentor each other and go, hey, how? And that's really not that involved other than, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Well, my experience is that would go this way, but have you considered something else? I also have a senior mentor that I consider the Air Mobility Command Commander, General Van Obost, is actually a mentor of mine and has been for many, many years. I don't talk to her every day, but when I do, I say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this in my life and my career, and what do you think about that? And I've gotten, over the course of my life, since she was my squadron commander, and now she is, definitely doing very well.
Yes.
I would say that I am probably a bit of a product of her mentorship of me. I like to think that I have mentored people that I've come into contact with in my life, say, hey, how can you better yourself? What I like to tell people is there's nothing uniquely special about me. If you look at me in high school, I'm about a 2.8 GPA kid, don't have a letter jacket in anything, not voted most likely to be anything unique or special. And again, despite my best efforts, I came here. But I think it's because I listened when people would give me advice, and I think there's also, you gain from when you help somebody come forward in their life, and so I think that's part of the enrichment of me personally, that by helping folks get forward, that some people have maybe recognized, he may be kind of good at something like that, so let's give him more responsibility. That's the fun thing in the military. If you get halfway decent at something, somebody recognizes that and they go, hey, let's give you more to do.
Yes.
And some would say that I'm a very busy guy. I don't feel like it because it doesn't feel like work. That's the fun thing about being in the military. A lot of us have these really fun things that we do that other people would describe as our job, but I don't call this a job. This is.
We run into that a lot in our interviews.
It's.
You guys love
I am
your
going
job.
Well, right, and it's going to be very disappointing. Someday I'm going to have to actually go get a job, and that I'm really thinking that's not going to be near as enjoyable as it is right now. So I am very fortunate. The Air Force allows me to fly airplanes. It allows me to be around and supervise really amazing people, and it's just a gift to be able to be serving our nation and wearing what I call the cloth of our nation. I tell folks, when you're wearing this uniform, it's very special. It's a varsity uniform, like an athlete, right? Because it's got two names on it that are very special. The United States and then your own. And so it's a very big privilege to get to wear this uniform and serve our nation. So I love what I do.
I was going to say, you may be biased, but, coming out of high school, like you said, find out what you want to do. So you feel that the military, of course, Air Force, is a great life choice for you. So would you recommend that for other kids who are maybe not sure what they want to be when they grow up?
Absolutely. And look at your other services and look at other ways to serve. I think being a fireman is an amazing thing. I think being a police officer. I think being a teacher. I think that all of these are really great things that contribute to our society. And so that's what I would say. Find something that you're passionate about that will also help your neighbors or your nation, and go do that. I think if somebody had said, hey, Phil, maybe you shouldn't go to college right away and maybe you could go try something in the military, I would have done really great with that. I think that would have been a great thing for me to do. I floundered a little bit during college trying to figure myself out, different majors, kind of all over the map until I found the Air Force. And the Air Force for me gave me a focus of my energies and say, hey, if you do all of this, there's no guarantee you're going to do all the things that you think you want to do, but there is an avenue that will allow you to go do some of the things that you want to do in your life. I never thought that I would be flying brand new $156 million airplanes.
That's not on a lot of people's checklist.
No, but it sure is fun, and it's not a bad place to live. And I go back to the other thing. I'm really not that special. I'm any kid today sitting in a high school seat, or maybe like an 8th grader who doesn't really know what to do. And I think back on when I was an 8th grader or even younger, no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I loved airplanes. That would be about it. I used to love to go watch the Thunderbirds at the air shows, and so I knew that I had a draw to airplanes. I also knew when I went to air shows that while the little fighter planes were cool, I liked big airplanes. I think they were just very cool to go see a massively amazing airplane go off and do some cool things. And that I was able to go do that. And in the 135, by the way, I've taken that airplane around the world a number of times. I've been in combat with it. I've done a lot of amazing things. Everything you can do in the KC-135, I've had the opportunity to do it. And so it's been fantastic to take that into the KC-46, and we are learning new things about it every single day. There's so many cool things on this new airplane. But that's what's exciting about the Air Force is, here's one cool thing about the Air Force. If you want to join an organization that needs your ideas, that needs your brain power, your experience, the diversity that you bring because of your background, your life, the Air Force is great. The only constant that we have in our Air Force is change. We are always looking for the next great idea. And if you're excited about making an organization better, making yourself better, or being a part of something really exciting, I would say consider the Air Force. But there are so many other things that you could do. Again, I'm a big fan of do something that's going to give back to your country. Be a fireman, be a teacher, be an EMT. I think all of these great people, go be a nurse, go be a doctor. There's all kinds of things that can contribute to our nation in many different ways. Not everybody is cut out to be in the military, and that's okay.
Yeah.
For those that find that this is what they really enjoy, I hope people find something in their lives that they give them the same passion and desire and drive that I have.
So the opposite. So say somebody's watching this, one of our junior high school, even elementary, but elementary is still a little too young to still do it. So say I've got a 7th grader that watches and says, I want to be him.
Sure.
What would you recommend for them to do at a young age to start deciding if, yes, military is the path they want to be?
Go to the library and read.
We have a whole section, 355.
There you go. No, I would say you can't learn enough. And go read about your passion. Go study it. And don't look at everything online. Go literally pick up a book and read a book from start to finish. And I waited way too late in my life to tackle that piece. Don't just rely on the stuff that you read and study in school. Go read and study about things that you're interested in. If you're interested in being a pilot, go read about it. Go find a pilot. Go talk with them. Educate yourself in what it is that you're interested in doing. One of the things that I would do again, if I could do it again, I'd learn a language. I'm trying to learn a language now. It's very challenging in my age to try to do that, but we live in a very diverse nation with multi-languages, and so if you can't communicate with everybody around you, then there's all those folks that's their number one language, you can't communicate with them, and that's disappointing. And when you travel around the world, and I've been to the Middle East and in Europe and the Pacific, and there's many places where I go where I can't communicate with the other human beings there, and it's disappointing. So I would say pick a language. Start while you're very young, because the neat part when you're young, it's easy to learn. It's much easier to learn a language when you're younger than when you're old like me. So language would be one. Definitely get to the library and read everything that you can. And don't just read one particular thing. Kind of broaden your horizon. Read different areas. Go to different sections. There's a whole lot of different sections in the library. You don't have to always go to the airplane section.
Yeah.
So.
Young kids, actually, they know their section.
They know their section.
They zone in
right?
on that section.
I
think
know.
it's great.
GDB Jones, all those, I know where they are. So
Yeah, I knew exactly where my kids are in the library because which kid it is, what section they're at.
Yeah, well, I was the kid that was scoping out. I know nobody does this, but encyclopedias, and I was always that kid that was looking at the airplane rows, looking at the pictures of the things doing that. But there's a whole world out there. So.
So I think you've kind of hit on this, but one thing that we ask everybody that we interview is, what do you absolutely just geek about your job? What is probably the one reason that you get up, put your uniform on? What makes you just so excited to say, I am a colonel in the Air Force?
Okay, well, I will probably give you the answer that you weren't expecting.
Okay.
So it is not about flying the airplanes,
Okay.
and it's not about this office or this cool thing. Really, it's the people. So I just love the people that I come to work with. every single day. There's amazing people in our Air Force, and I love interacting with them, and I love communicating with them and watching them achieve things that they wanted to do in their life. Because really, at my point, that's what it's all about: is bringing up that next generation of me who's going to take my job at some point. Because eventually, I'll have to take this uniform off for good. But I think that an organization filled with people who want to be here, that's the beautiful part about, at least in the Air Force Reserve, of the people that I come into contact with. Nobody's forced to be here. We are all volunteers. We are all happy volunteers to be here. Now, some of us are doing other things in our lives outside to try to do something else with our lives. But it's interesting, in my role as the commander in the Reserve Wing, I have people that travel to here from 31 different states and Guam to do their service here. And so they pass a lot of places where they could do it a lot closer to home, but they come all the way here, even with all the things going on with COVID and the challenges of the world. So I love being in an organization that everybody wants to be here and be a part of this mission, and they're excited and they're passionate about it. That's what gets me out of bed before my alarm clock. That I get to fly airplanes is gravy. It is an added benefit, and I love doing it, but it is not really the reason that I come flying to work every single day. That is just something I get to do. The privilege for me is to work with the people.
And I think you pretty much I think you've told us everything you want. Is there anything that you just want our kids and families at home watching? Is there anything that you want them to know about Air Force or being the 931st, or anything that you think that everybody should know about what this office does?
So actually what I would really like everyone to know, that, and I'll talk to any of those kids out there, that if you don't know what you're going to do for the rest of your life, that's okay. I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And you don't have to worry about it. I think there's too much pressure, quite frankly, either on schools or other organizations out there to say, hey, you need to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I think there's too much pressure in our schools to say, well, you need to get on for lack of a better term, this path to go be a whatever. Well, what happens if along the course of that path you realize, I don't really want to do that? What I would say is take various paths. Try different paths out. Feel it out for a little bit. Because, again, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And if you are trying to figure it out and you don't know what it is you want to do right now, consider doing military service. It's not a bad thing to do. It's a fantastic thing, actually. There's so many opportunities. And we could pay for your school. I have positions for graduating high school kids today flying on the KC-46. Today. Are you a kid that's kind of techie and you want to maintain them? I've got 300 vacancies.
Oh, okay.
Waiting for anybody to come and do this, and you can live right here in Kansas and do all that. So I think that's very exciting. So the 931st, what we offer is for that someone who doesn't know what they want to do for the rest of your life. Hey, come spend some time with us, 2, 3, 4, 6 years. I know that sounds like a long period of time, but when you're sitting having done 27 years, it doesn't really feel like a long period of time at all. And you don't have to go to college right away. I'm just a big fan of that. I think I would have probably benefited not going to college right away. It would have helped me not get a terrible grade point average when I first started out, because I really had no idea what I was doing. But I think the Guard and the Reserve both offer great opportunities to continue to live in home, go to college, and then get to do these really cool things while you're still filling out who you are and what you want to do with your life. So that's what I would say. We in the 931st, or in the 184th, or up at the 190th in Topeka in the Guard, there's plenty of things that we can keep you very excited while you figure out what you're doing in your life, and we'll pay you to do it.
That's always a bonus.
It's not bad. It's in addition to all of this, they do pay us.
Yes.
So that's pretty
cool.
cool.
You get paid to have fun.
We do have a lot of fun, and we are paid enough to keep it fun and interesting. So I love what I do. So I really appreciate your time and coming over.
Thank you.
I hope this was valuable for your time.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much for talking to us, talking to our families. I think it's always interesting for the kids to see, because especially our military families, these kids see the uniforms all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they live on base, they go to school or not school, but they go to CDC and SAC on base. So they see uniforms all the time. So it's always nice to be able to talk to somebody who's in the uniform that's not mom or dad. Because mom and dad don't always know everything.
But if it does help you, I am a dad too, so
Yeah.
I got that going for us.
Well, according to the kids, mom and dad don't always know everything.
No, and I'll be honest with you. Here's a secret: we don't. But it's okay. It's
All
okay.
right. Well, thank you so much for taking this time out of your busy day.
Sure.
We appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Thank you.